Bad with Money, The Imperfect Art of Getting Your Financial Shit Together by Gaby Dunn. Picture yourself sitting in a cozy coffee shop, the smell of fresh espresso and warm croissants floating through the air. Now imagine someone walks up to your table with a microphone and asks you a slightly awkward question. What's your favorite sex position? You'd probably laugh, maybe turn a little red, but honestly, you'd probably answer. When Gaby Dunn, our guide through today's adventure, actually tried this experiment, people were surprisingly game. Answers came flying in from every corner. Even the barista jumped in with an enthusiastic response. Everyone was laughing, open, totally cool about it. Then she asked the second question. How much money is in your bank account right now? Suddenly, the whole vibe changed. People froze. The laughter died. One person actually gasped. That's way too personal. Just like that, it became crystal clear that for most of us, talking about our finances is more taboo than talking about our sex lives. Kinda wild, right? The one thing that touches absolutely everything in our lives, our jobs, our health, our relationships, our dreams, is the one thing we absolutely refuse to discuss. This silence is where all the bad stuff grows. The shame, the anxiety, the feeling that you're completely alone in this mess. We check our bank statements in secret. We lie awake at night stressing about debt. We scroll through Instagram, seeing everyone else's seemingly perfect lives, and assume we're the only ones who haven't figured it out. We convince ourselves that our money problems are purely our fault, proof that we're lazy, stupid, or just fundamentally broken. But here's the thing. What if that's complete nonsense? What if your money problems aren't entirely your fault? And what if the first step to getting your financial life together isn't some complicated spreadsheet or investment portfolio, but something way simpler, just being honest about it? In her eye-opening book, Bad with Money, Gaby Dunn doesn't pretend to be some financial guru on a mountaintop shouting down wisdom. Her whole power comes from her radical honesty. She's right down in the trenches with the rest of us, admitting that she's been lost, confused, and completely overwhelmed by all of this. This book isn't just a how-to guide. It's more like a revelation. It's a deep dive into the hidden forces shaping our financial lives, the family secrets, the social pressures, the psychological triggers that influence every dollar we earn, spend, and save. So for the next little while, I want you to let go of any shame you're carrying about your own money situation. By the end of this, I promise you'll understand not just what to do about money, but why you feel the way you do about it. You'll realize you're far from alone, and you'll discover that getting good with money isn't about being perfect. It's about being honest. To really understand our relationship with money, we can't start with a budget. We have to start with a story. Our story. Long before we ever earned our first paycheck, we were already learning about money. We were like little sponges in our childhood homes, soaking up lessons that would shape us forever. A financial psychologist named Dr. Brad Klontz calls these absorbed messages our money scripts, and they're basically the invisible software running our financial lives. Gaby Dunn's own story perfectly shows how this works. She grew up in a house where money was this weird mix of love, chaos, and contradiction. Her father, who she loved deeply, was basically the poster child for living in the moment. Dealing with addiction and a gambling problem, he taught his family that the future was basically imaginary. The universe will provide, he'd say all the time. They took vacations they absolutely couldn't afford, and threw parties that buried them in debt, all in the name of making beautiful memories. As he once told Gaby, it may have not been a good lesson, but we had a great time. On the flip side was her mother, the family breadwinner, and a lawyer who worked like crazy. But even she was caught up in overspending, determined to give her kids the life experiences she thought were so important. In a pretty wild twist, she often traded her legal services for things they needed: haircuts, furniture, even party planning. They were living a life that, on paper, they absolutely couldn't afford, held together by trades and mounting credit card bills. These money patterns went back even further. Gaby's grandmother, Meme, was a Holocaust survivor. After experiencing unimaginable loss, her philosophy was simple. Life is short and brutal, so why not surround yourself with beautiful things? She spent big on jewelry, art, and fancy clothes. Her other grandmother, Lee, was totally different, a working-class hero who worked her entire life, saving for a retirement she barely got to enjoy before she died. From Meme, Gaby learned that spending could ease pain. From Lee, she learned that saving for a future that might never come is its own kind of tragedy. These mixed messages created total confusion. Even though Gaby and her younger sister Cheyenne grew up in the same house, they developed completely different money habits. Gaby was hyper-aware of the family's money stress, while Cheyenne somehow remained blissfully oblivious. This difference exploded years later when Gaby loaned her sister $1,000 for emergency bills. Just hours after getting the money, Cheyenne posted a picture of a $40 sushi dinner on social media. When Gaby confronted her, Cheyenne's defense was a perfect echo of their family patterns. "I've been so sad about money, so I need to spend money to feel better." She felt she deserved a treat. This is the first major lesson of the book. We're all products of our financial upbringing. Our habits, whether we're impulse spenders or anxious savers, are usually echoes of lessons we learned at the dinner table. Until we dig up those stories and understand where they came from, we'll stay trapped by them. But our family history is only part of the picture. As Gaby makes painfully clear, the financial system itself isn't designed to help us. It's actually stacked against us. This becomes brutally obvious when we're young, facing one of our first major financial decisions, college. Gaby shares this deeply relatable story about the intense pressure she felt in high school. Her school literally put up a giant bulletin board in the hallway, publicly displaying every senior's college acceptances. It created this toxic competition culture where the prestige of your school mattered way more than what it cost. Gaby could have gone to the University of Florida completely free, thanks to scholarships and her parents' prepaid plan. But she was miserable in her hometown and desperate to escape. She pinned all her hopes on getting into an expensive out-of-state school, seeing it as her only ticket to happiness. Her parents, acting on emotion rather than logic, let her take on $30,000 in student loan debt to attend Emerson College in Boston. It was a decision made from love, but one with consequences that would haunt her for years. Her story is basically a snapshot of a national crisis. The book introduces us to people like Adriana, a graduate student who expects to be over $80,000 in debt by the time she finishes her PhD. She and her friends see the number as so ridiculously huge that it feels like monopoly money. They joke about just dying with the debt, because paying it off seems literally impossible. We also meet John Brunson, whose private student loans got sold and resold so many times that he started getting letters from debt collection agencies he'd never even heard of, demanding thousands of dollars. He was trapped in what John Oliver called a, quote, debt maze, this confusing and predatory system where your debt can be bought and sold without you even knowing, making it nearly impossible to track who you actually owe. This rigged system extends beyond education into the workforce. The book powerfully destroys the myth of the lazy millennial. Gaby references journalist Nona Willis-Aronowitz, who points out that the entitled young person stereotype applies almost exclusively to white, middle-class people. The media portrays working-class young people not as millennials but just as poor people, erasing them from the conversation and ignoring their struggles with unstable jobs and ridiculously low wages. Nowhere is this struggle more obvious than in the world of unpaid internships. Gaby's personal story here is absolutely heartbreaking. She landed her dream internship at The Daily Show with Jon Stewart in New York City. It was the ultimate achievement, but it was unpaid. Even worse, her college wouldn't give her credit for it. To make it work, she had to enroll in a community college back in Florida and pay tuition just so she could work for free in New York. She was literally paying for the privilege of working an unpaid job. That summer was brutal and anything but glamorous. She lived in a tiny room in Brooklyn, an hour from Manhattan. She scraped by, hiding hard-boiled eggs under lettuce at the salad bar to save money. desperate for professional clothes she couldn't afford. She even tried to shoplift a skirt and got caught in this moment of complete shame. She tried pawning her grandmother's jewelry. The story reaches its lowest point when, after trying to sell her old stuff, the paper bags break and spill everything onto a dirty Manhattan sidewalk. She just collapses right there on the concrete and cries, completely broken. This experience highlights a dark truth. Unpaid internships create a barrier that keeps working-class people out, ensuring that fancy industries are filled with people whose families can afford to subsidize their careers. It's a system that locks in inequality before your career even starts. After leaving the safety of a full-time job to chase her creative dreams, Gaby entered the shaky world of the, quote, gig economy, a life she documents with the hashtag freelance life. She did everything to make ends meet: freelance writing, nude modeling, even delivering food for Postmates. She shares this surreal experience of being stopped for photos by fans who recognized her from YouTube while she was rushing to make a delivery, terrified she wouldn't get paid if she was late. She was famous enough to be recognized but too broke not to have a side hustle. This exploration of family history and broken systems sets the stage for the book's most vulnerable theme, the deep connection between mental health and money. For years, Gaby struggled with money, thinking she was just irresponsible. But there was another story happening underneath. After several breakdowns, she was diagnosed with bipolar II, a mood disorder that swings between depression and mania. She ignored the diagnosis at first, scared of the stigma. But as she started honestly looking at her life, she couldn't deny the pattern anymore. Her financial history was basically a map of her mental state. During manic episodes, she felt this euphoric sense of invincibility. Life was easy, and money was just a made-up concept. She'd make these impulsive, grandiose purchases: a book on writing musicals, applications to graduate schools in Japan, convinced these were crucial steps toward some brilliant new future. This is what experts call manic spending. During depressive episodes, the spending continued, but for a different reason. She desperately wanted material things to make her feel better, something called comfort spending. No matter her mood, her brain found a reason to spend and a reason to avoid checking her bank account, which she saw as, quote, too stressful for her fragile state. The book details this harrowing breakdown in 2012. It started with a manic decision to get unnecessary cosmetic surgery on her lip, which she charged to a credit card without having money to pay for it. This was followed by a massive, alcohol-fueled birthday party that triggered a complete physical and mental collapse. She spent a week on her brother's couch, unable to eat, sleep, or even move, convinced she was dying. And yet, just days after this terrifying episode, in a moment of complete delusion, she did something totally irrational. She bought a plane ticket to Europe. She told herself she deserved a vacation, but the trip was a disaster. She wandered through Paris and Madrid alone, dealing with horrible anxiety and drinking heavily to cope. She was burning through money she didn't have. The trip ended perfectly chaotically. Her wallet got stolen in a Parisian bar, leaving her stranded without cash or cards. She had to call an ex-boyfriend to beg for a ride home from the airport, arriving back in New York emotionally and financially at rock bottom. This story powerfully shows that our financial behavior isn't always a conscious choice. For many people, it's a symptom. Reckless spending can be tangled up with depression, anxiety, PTSD, and other mental health challenges. By refusing to acknowledge this connection, we just pile more shame onto an already crushing burden. So where does this leave us? Trapped by family patterns, crushed by a broken system, and sabotaged by our own minds? Not exactly. The second half of Bad with Money focuses on the imperfect art of getting your financial shit together. Gaby doesn't offer magic solutions, but rather a series of honest, practical, shame-free steps toward awareness and control. The very first step, she argues, is simple. Just look. Stop avoiding it. Gaby walks us through her own process of finally sitting down and going through her bank statements. She discovered where her money was actually going, and some of it shocked her, like a single month with $600 in Amazon purchases. The goal wasn't to beat herself up, just to gather information. She explores different approaches to budgeting, contrasting the strict methods of people like Dave Ramsey with the more forgiving philosophy of Suze Orman, who thinks rigid budgets are like crash diets, doomed to fail. Gaby's approach is somewhere in the middle. It's about awareness, not deprivation. She uses an app called Digit that automatically saves tiny, barely noticeable amounts of money, helping her build a savings habit without feeling the squeeze. Next, she demystifies the intimidating world of credit. She hilariously describes her terror of walking into a bank to get her first credit card, imagining the staff laughing at how clueless she was. For years, she had a card that literally said cash rewards on it but never used them, convinced it was some kind of trap. When she finally met with a banker, she learned she had over $200 in rewards just sitting there, unclaimed. It's a simple but powerful lesson. Sometimes the system has benefits we can actually use, but only if we're brave enough to ask how they work. The book also digs into the complex role money plays in relationships. Through her own dating history, Gaby explores the friction that happens when different money beliefs collide. She dated a broke improviser who, despite his own money problems, was the first person to push her toward financial independence from her parents. Later, she dated a wealthy guy whose abundance mindset constantly clashed with her scarcity mindset. He just couldn't understand her anxiety around money, and she couldn't comprehend his casualness about it. These stories show that financial compatibility isn't about how much money each person has. It's about whether your values and beliefs about money can coexist. Finally, the book tackles the big, scary life moments: weddings, babies, and even death. It exposes the wedding industry as a massive machine that profits from our emotions, with the average wedding costing over $33,000. Gaby compares it to her own bat mitzvah at age 13, a lavish space-themed party that cost her parents $20,000 they didn't have. A perfect example of how love and social pressure can lead to financial disasters. When it comes to death, the book offers a sobering but essential look at the financial aftermath of losing someone. We hear from Eden Dranger, who became an orphan in her early 20s. Her father died without a clear financial plan, and she discovered his bank account was overdrawn by thousands, and he'd stopped paying bills. She had to navigate mountains of paperwork and debt while grieving, a painful reminder that preparing for death is one of the most important financial things we can do. Throughout everything, the message stays constant. This journey is messy, it's imperfect, there will be mistakes. But the goal isn't financial perfection. It's financial honesty, with ourselves and with each other. It's about breaking the silence, sharing our stories, and realizing we're not alone in this struggle. We're all just trying to figure it out. As we wrap up our journey through Bad with Money, what hits me hardest isn't some clever budgeting trick or revolutionary investment strategy. It's the profound sense of relief that comes with Gaby Dunn's central message: you are not a failure. In a world drowning in financial advice that often feels judgy and out of touch, this book is a radical act of empathy. Its power doesn't come from authority. It comes from shared vulnerability. Gaby's willingness to expose her own mistakes, the impulsive trips, the mountains of debt, the crippling anxiety, gives all of us permission to be honest about our own struggles. Why does this matter so much right now? Because we live in an age of curated perfection. Our social media feeds are highlight reels of success, exotic vacations, beautiful homes, thriving careers. It's incredibly easy to look at this digital parade and feel like you're the only one falling behind. We're lonelier than ever in our financial struggles, because the story we're sold is that everyone else has it all figured out. Bad with Money completely shatters that illusion. It reminds us that behind every closed door and every smiling profile picture, there's a real human being with a complicated history, unique fears, and a messy relationship with money. The book's genius is that it reframes the entire problem. It argues that if so many of us feel bad with money, maybe the problem isn't just us. Maybe the problem is a system designed to confuse us, a culture that values silence over honesty, and a society that ties our self-worth to our net worth. So how do we actually apply these lessons in our own lives? It doesn't start with some dramatic overhaul. It starts with small, brave acts of honesty. Here are 3 simple things you can do this week, inspired by the spirit of this book. First, have one uncomfortable conversation. Find someone you trust, a friend, a partner, a sibling, and share one small, honest thing about your financial life. Maybe admit you don't understand how credit cards work. Maybe share your anxiety about an upcoming expense. Just break the silence. You'll be amazed how quickly shame dissolves when it's met with empathy. Second, spend 15 minutes becoming a financial archaeologist. Grab a notebook and write down your earliest money memories. What did your parents say about money? What did they fight about? What unspoken lessons did you absorb? You don't have to analyze or fix anything. Just acknowledge it. Understanding your money script is the first step to rewriting it. And third, look at one number without judgment. Just one. Log into your bank account and check your balance. Or look at your student loan statement. Or just review your last 5 transactions. Don't spiral into panic or self-criticism. Your only job is to look, to acknowledge reality. That simple act of seeing is where all change begins. That was a summary of Bad with Money by Gaby Dunn. We've touched on the big ideas today, but a summary is like looking at a map of a beautiful country. The map can show you landmarks and the general layout, but it can never replace actually walking the streets, hearing the music, and tasting the food. The real magic of this book is in the stories, the details, and those moments of recognition that make you feel truly seen. This summary is a signpost, meant to help you decide if this is a journey you want to take. If anything we've talked about today resonated with you, I really encourage you to grab a copy. Reading it isn't just about learning. It's an experience that can fundamentally change how you see yourself, your past, and your future. The link to the book is in the description. Also, if you found this summary valuable and it gave you a new perspective, please take a moment to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. That way you won't miss our next deep dive into another life-changing book from the Billionaire's Bookshelf. Your support lets us keep exploring these powerful ideas together. Let's continue this journey of growth, one book at a time.